Maria and welcome to SC Global News. From the brutal attack that claimed the life of a Syrian pastor and nearly 20 others of his family to the journey of young Korean pilgrims heading to Rome for the Jubilee of Youth, we have many stories to cover. A Syrian pastor and nearly 20 members of his family died in a brutal attack in Suvdaya amid escalating sectarian violence. Pastor Khalid Messer, a convert from Druze faith, led Good Shepherd Evangelical Church. The massacre has sparked urgent calls from church leaders and global Christian advocates for international intervention to halt what they call a growing wave of terrorist atrocities.
Pastor Khalid Messer, leader of the Good Shepherd Evangelical Church in Suwaida, Syria, was killed along with nearly 20 relatives over the weekend, according to Syrian media reports. The victims included his parents, siblings, and their children. Christian news sources reported that Messer, originally from the Druze community, had converted to Christianity with his entire family several years ago. The Syrian Orthodox Church issued an urgent appeal Monday, calling for United Nations intervention. The Greek Orthodox Archdiocese in the region condemned the brutality as barbaric. It urged global prayer and action to stop ongoing massacres. U.S. evangelical figures Johnny Moore, now heading the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, described the pastor's death as a senseless murder by terrorists. He said the family had shared the love of Jesus under challenging conditions and are now honored as martyrs. The killings come amid heightened sectarian conflicts in southern Syria between Bedouin fighters and Druze militias. More than 250 people have reportedly died in the past week alone, despite a fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Religious leaders and observers warned that the ongoing violence could dismantle unstable post-Assad coalitions and worsen Syria's humanitarian crisis as civilians face several shortages of food and electricity.
The Greek Orthodox Church expressed despair over the ongoing persecution of Druze and Christians in Suvdaya province. In a statement issued on Monday, church leaders made a plea stating, "Defend the people, defend faith, defend life, silence is complicity," and call for action against Islamist extremism.
In a passionate appeal to the international community, the Syrian Orthodox Church has issued an urgent statement regarding the ongoing persecution of Christians and Druze by Islamist militants in the Syrian province of Suwaida. Church leaders condemned the brutal violence, emphasizing that the attacks were not isolated incidents, but a coordinated campaign against religious and ethnic minorities. "The time has come to speak with moral clarity," the statement read. "Defend the people, defend faith, defend life. Silence is complicity." These words reflect the Church's deep frustration with what it views as the international community's silence. The Church has called upon the United Nations and the European Union to not only denounce the violence but to take effective steps toward protecting civilians in the region. Since July of last year, the province of Suwaida has been engulfed in gruesome violence. The local Druze community, along with the region's Christian population, has been under sustained attack by armed jihadist factions. Militants have targeted majority Christian and Druze villages, burning homes, looting shops, and terrorizing residents. One of the most horrific attacks occurred in the village of Al-Khara, where several Christian families were massacred. Among the victims was Pastor Khalid Messer, a prominent convert from Islam and the leader of the Evangelical Good Shepherd Church in Suwaida.
Pope Leo has spoken with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas following his earlier phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Holy Father urged that international humanitarian law be upheld and called for the protection of civilians and sacred sites amid the ongoing conflict. The call comes days after an Israeli tank strike hit Gaza's only Catholic parish, killing 3 and injuring several others, including the parish priest.
Following his phone conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday, Pope Leo spoke with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on Monday. According to the Vatican, the Holy Father urged the Palestinian president to ensure that international humanitarian law is fully respected in the war-stricken region. He also reiterated his appeal for the protection of civilians and sacred sites. The Pope expressed deep concern over the indiscriminate use of force and the forced displacement of the population. Aware of the tragic humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, Pope Leo emphasized the urgent need to assist the most vulnerable and to ensure the adequate entry of humanitarian aid. On Thursday, July 17th, an Israeli tank attacked the only Catholic parish in Gaza, which had been sheltering more than 600 displaced civilians. 3 people were killed in the attack and many others were injured, including the parish priest, Father Gabriel Romanelli. The incident has renewed calls for the protection of sacred sites and the safeguarding of innocent lives in a war that has now lasted over 650 days.
Pope Leo XIV made a private visit to the Santa Marta home for elderly in Castel Gandolfo on Monday morning, sharing words of comfort, encouragement and spiritual support with women living there and their caregivers. The Holy Father personally greeted approximately 20 elderly residents. Pope Leo XIV visited Santa Marta home for the elderly in Castel Gandolfo on July 28th. According to the Holy See press office, the Holy Father arrived at the residence at 10:30 a.m., where he was warmly welcomed by the community of nuns who run the facility. After spending time in prayer in the chapel, the Pope personally greeted approximately 20 elderly residents, ranging in age from 80 to 101. Following a time of prayer and song with those gathered, the Pope offered a brief address. In his message, he reflected on the themes expressed in the songs and linked them to the Gospel reading from Luke for that Sunday. The Holy Father spoke about how each person carries within them both the spirit of Martha and Mary. He encouraged those present to use this season of life to embrace the example of Mary by taking time to listen to Jesus and to pray. The Pope emphasized the power and importance of prayer, saying it is more important than we can imagine. He reassured the elderly residents that age does not matter to Jesus, who draws near to each person, makes himself a guest in their lives, and invites them, both young and old, to be his witnesses. He told them, "You are signs of hope," acknowledging that they had given so much in life and continue to serve as a living testimony of prayer and faith, a family that offers what it has to the Lord. After leading the residents in the Lord's Prayer, Pope Leo XIV spent additional time visiting the facility. He then returned to Villa Barbini, where he is residing during his stay in Castel Gandolfo. The new custodian of Holy Land, Father Francesco Patton's successor, has officially arrived in Jerusalem. Father Stefan Milovic, a French Franciscan, was welcomed in a traditional ceremony at Jaffa Gate. His appointment comes at a time of increased religious and political tensions in the region as the Church continues its mission to safeguard Christian holy sites.
Father Francesco Leplo began his mission as custodian of the Holy Land on July the 21st with a solemn entrance at the Church of Saint Saviour in Jerusalem. The traditional ceremony marked the official transfer of responsibilities from outgoing custodian Father Francesco Patton. According to church sources, the transition comes at one of the most difficult times in the region since 1967. In Gaza alone, over 57,000 people have died in the past 22 months. Violence has also targeted Christians, including a recent shelling of a Catholic parish and deadly attacks in Syria. In an interview reportedly by Vatican News, Father Leplo acknowledged both the external crises and the personal weight of his mission. He reportedly viewed the role as a space for the Holy Spirit to act through Franciscan witness and service. He also emphasized the importance of the custody's international makeup, its 17 schools across Israel and Palestine, and the growing need for charitable work, especially for children during the war. Before assuming office, Father Lepler visited Franciscan communities in Syria and Lebanon. He praised the resilience of local friars and described the strong ties between the friars and the populations they serve, including interfaith relationships in conflict zones.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee visited the Christian village of Taiway on July 19th to meet with local priests and inspect damage to the ancient St. George Church, which was reportedly desecrated by Israeli settlers. Calling the attack a crime against humanity and God, Huckabee condemned the violence and demanded accountability, insisting the Christian community deserved dignity and protection.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee visited the Christian village of Taipei on July the 19th. Huckabee met with the local priests and assessed the damage caused by Israeli settlers on the village's 5th century St. George Church and termed the desecration a crime against humanity and God. In a press release, the ambassador stated that there should be harsh consequences for the acts of destruction aimed at one of the last bastions of our civilization. What has happened here is an absolute travesty, he wrote, adding that those who carried out the acts of violence and terror in Taipei needed to pay a price. Huckabee emphatically stated that the Christian community in Taipei deserved to be treated with dignity. Last week, the ambassador also called for a thorough investigation by Israel into the killing of a 20-year-old American Palestinian in the West Bank by Israeli settlers. Huckabee made the visit following criticism of the absence of any American diplomatic representatives during the July 14 visit to the village by the patriarchs and heads of churches of Jerusalem, as well as 28 foreign diplomats.
A Pennsylvania church has been vandalized with hateful graffiti, leaving the local Catholic community shaken. Anti-Catholic and anti-Semitic messages were found defacing a statue of Virgin Mary and other parts of St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church in Baldwin. The Diocese of Pittsburgh has released photos to aid the investigation, now being led by the FBI.
The Catholic Diocese of Pittsburgh has released photos of vandalism at St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church, Triumph of the Holy Cross Parish in Baldwin, Pennsylvania on Monday, July 21st, in hopes of aiding law enforcement in identifying the perpetrators. The church was vandalized last week with anti-Catholic and anti-Semitic messages scrawled on a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, as well as on commemorative plaques located on the bell tower and the convent door. The FBI has launched an investigation into the incident, which has deeply shocked the local community. The newly appointed bishop of the diocese, Bishop Mark Ekman, issued a statement on Saturday, July 19th, expressing his profound sorrow over the attack. The anti-Catholic and anti-Semitic messages left behind have wounded not only the people of this parish, but every member of our diocesan family, he wrote. Bishop Ekman added that the sacred space meant for prayer, community, and the merciful presence of God had been violated in a deeply painful way. He also confirmed that the diocese is fully cooperating with the FBI-led investigation. St. Elizabeth of Hungary Parish was established in 1941 to serve the faithful in Pleasant Hills. In 2020, it merged with 3 other parishes to form Triumph of the Holy Cross Parish, allowing the church to remain active and accessible to the community.
A fire on July 14 destroyed St. Mary's Catholic Church in Avondale, Auckland, prompting an arson investigation. Emergency services were called on to the historic church on Great North Road shortly after 4 a.m. Police later arrested a 42-year-old man at a property in Newland and has been charged with 1 count of arson. A fire that broke out early on Monday, July 14th, has devastated the historic St. Mary's Catholic Church community in Avondale, Auckland. Emergency services were called onto the scene, located in the front of St. Mary's Catholic School on Great North Road, shortly after 4 a.m. The church had been completely gutted by the fire, with one side of the brick building having collapsed. Fire and Emergency Assistant Commander Phil Larcombe confirmed that the structure was severely damaged by the time crews arrived. Police have arrested a 42-year-old man in connection with the fire. He was taken into custody at a property in Newland on July 21st and has been charged with 1 count of arson. He is expected to appear in the Auckland District Court today. According to police, images of the suspect were released soon after the incident, showing a man wearing a black beanie and a dark long-sleeve jumper with distinctive orange patterns. James Van Schie, General Manager for the Diocese of Auckland, described the impact on the community as devastating. He said, "The priority now is ensuring the safety of everyone affected." The parish was established in 1921 and the church was built in late 1950s. For over 100 years, the church had been a vital part of the fabric of the Avondale community. Father Andrew Matthew, who lives near the church, said he walked to the sound of a window popping around 4 a.m. and realized something was wrong. The fire had already taken hold of the building by that time. Tragedy struck Bangladesh as a fighter jet crashed into a school campus. In a statement issued by military officials, 26 people were reported dead and 164 were admitted to various hospitals in Dhaka in the aftermath of the crash.
Tragedy struck in Bangladesh as an F-7 aircraft belonging to the Bangladesh Air Force crashed into a school complex, killing 27 people, including students who were present on the campus. The tragic event took place in the nation's capital, Dhaka, when an F-7 combat flight piloted by Tokir Islam Sagar malfunctioned and crashed into a building of Milestone School and College. The fire service and paramedics who rushed to the crash site pulled the bodies of the deceased and rescued survivors from the scattered debris. According to Bangladeshi military officials, 19 people, including students, were declared dead and 164 people were admitted to various hospitals in Dhaka. The military officials did not state the exact cause of the flight malfunction. The Chengdu J-7 model, which was involved in the crash, was a top-choice fighter jet for many air forces during the 1980s and 1990s. However, in recent years, numerous J-7 models have experienced engine failures and technical malfunctions. Earlier in 2022, a J-7 plane crashed into a residential building in China's Hubei province. However, due to swift thinking, the pilot was able to eject from the aircraft before it crashed into the building.
As part of Project 1004, the Archdiocese of Seoul will send over 1,000 young people to Rome to help prepare future Catholic leaders in South Korea. The participants are pilgrims involved in the initiative, which are aimed at readying young Catholics not only for the Jubilee of Youth in Rome, but also for the upcoming World Youth Day.
More than 1,000 young Koreans will participate in the Jubilee of Youth, taking place in Rome from July 28 to August the 3rd. The Archdiocese of Seoul organized a send-off event for the youngsters on July 19 at Dongsung High School in Seoul. According to a press release on the Archdiocese's website, the event included an orientation program designed to build unity among the pilgrims and to prepare them for the journey ahead. A send-off mass was celebrated by Bishop Paul Kyung-sang Lee, Auxiliary Bishop of Seoul and the General Coordinator of the WYD Seoul Local Organizing Committee, together with more than 60 priests. From July 28th to August 3rd, 1078 young Korean pilgrims will travel in 18 subgroups across Assisi, Milan, and Turin before converging in Rome for the main Jubilee events and to walk through the holy doors of the papal basilicas. The itineraries include stops at significant Catholic heritage sites across Italy for prayer, formation, and social events. On July the 31st, all the pilgrims will gather at the Basilica of San Crisogono in Rome at 10 a.m. for a Mass that will be celebrated by Cardinal Andrew Yom Soo-jun, the Archbishop Emeritus of Seoul.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.